They raised their glasses beneath the crystal chandelier, smiling as if they loved me, then whispered to their friends that I, dressed like a cheap knockoff trying to play rich. I stood 3 steps away, catching every word. That night, I didn't argue. I opened my phone notes, sketched my first dress. 6 months later, they needed gowns for a prestigious gala, and my price sheet left them speechless. My name is Elena Brooks, and I learned that night in Aspen that blood means nothing when it comes to cruelty. The Silvercrest Lodge gleamed against the December mountains, its windows throwing golden rectangles onto fresh powder snow. Inside, the Rocky's Heart Foundation Gala was reaching its peak that specific hour when champagne loosened tongues and charity became performance art. I'd spent 3 weeks hand-sewing my outfit, a charcoal satin suit dress with architectural shoulders that defied every safe, boring rule my mother had ever preached. Vivian Brooks stood near the ice sculpture, her pearl brooch catching light with each gesture. My mother, owner of Pearl Avenue Boutique in Denver, guardian of all things properly feminine. She was holding court with her circle, women whose husbands golfed with senators and whose closets held more Hermes than personality. Elena's always been creative, she said, that last word dripping with the particular venom reserved for family disappointments. But there's a difference between fashion and costume, isn't there? The women tittered. I watched from the bar, my fingers tight around a glass of Chablis I couldn't taste anymore. Gregory Brooks, my father, materialized beside her with his black card visible in his breast pocket, his favorite prop. The investment broker who measured love in wire transfers and measured worth in zeros. I keep telling her, he boomed to his audience of fellow suits. My black card doesn't sponsor failed experiments. Someone asked about my outfit. Dad's laugh cut through the Mozart quartet. She calls it design. I call it cosplay for people who can't afford the real thing. The words hit like ice water down my spine. 3 steps away. They knew I was 3 steps away. Jared Pike, my fresh ex-boyfriend, chose that moment to slide up to them. PR agency smooth, connection collector, the man who dumped me last week for being too ambitious for my actual station. He whispered something to my mother. She laughed, bright and sharp as breaking crystal. Oh, Jared, you're terrible. But yes, I was thinking the same thing. I should call my stylist tomorrow, have her send something appropriate for Elena. We can't have her embarrassing the family name with these experiments. My hand found my phone. Under the chandelier's glare, I photographed the shoulder seam of my jacket, the precise angle where structure met defiance. In my notes app, I typed line 01 shoulder blade, Silvercrest. The pearl brooch on Mother's lapel winked with each cruel word. A family heirloom she wore like armor. Dad's black card emerged again as he signed for another bottle of Dom Perignon, waving it like a flag of superiority. These would become my markers, my maps to revenge. A server passed with canapes. Mother caught her arm, spoke loudly enough for the entire cluster to hear. Would you mind finding my daughter, the one in the interpretive outfit? Tell her we're leaving in 20 minutes, and that I have a Chanel jacket in the car she can borrow. The photographers are still working the exit. The server's eyes found mine, pity mixed with second-hand embarrassment. I shook my head slightly. She moved on. I didn't speak that night. Didn't defend myself or my carefully constructed shoulders. The 17 hours of hand-stitching. The way I'd draped the satin to catch light like liquid smoke. Instead, I watched my parents work the room, watched how they apologized for me without saying my name, watched how money became their megaphone and their shield. At 11:45 p.m., I left through the service entrance. The valet looked confused. Guests didn't usually exit through the kitchen. But I wasn't a guest anymore. I was a designer. And my parents had just become my first clients who wouldn't know it until the bill came due. The Rhino studio smelled like burnt coffee and possibility at 4:30. I hadn't slept since Aspen. My kitchen table had become a cutting board, flour brushed aside for pattern paper, the old Aeroline sewing machine humming where the toaster used to sit. Shame had metabolized into something harder, cleaner. Purpose. I sketched through dawn, my concept crystallizing with each line. Fault line. A collection where every seam resembled geological fractures, where elegance broke and reformed stronger. Not clothes that screamed money, but whispered power through structure alone, the kind of garments that made people lean closer, wondering why they couldn't look away. The philosophy wrote itself in my notebook margins. Nobility is architecture, never logos. Let them pay for their labels. I'll make them pay for transformation. 90 days. I gave myself 90 days to build Veer and Vine from nothing but spite and skill. My target demographic took shape as I measured and cut professional women, 28 to 45, in mountain cities and plains, metros Denver, Salt Lake, Dallas, women who'd been told their ambition was too much by people who feared it wasn't enough. At 7 a.m., I called Sasha Quinn. Elena Christ, what time? I need you. Silence. Sasha had been haute couture's secret weapon before arthritis forced her to retire at 52. Her hands could still coax silk into submission, could hide seams so perfectly they seemed like wishes. I'm starting something. It's going to be thankless until it isn't. I can pay you in equity and spite. Her laugh was cigarette rough. I'm listening. By noon, she stood in my kitchen studio, running her fingers along my sketches. This shoulder construction. You're angry. I'm focused. Good. Anger fades. Focus builds empires. She pulled out her vintage thimble. We'll need silk wool blend for structure, recycled horn buttons, sustainability cells, and hand-embroidered labels. V&V, Denver, I said. Every piece numbered. Marisol Vega arrived at 2, camera bag slung over her shoulder. The fashion photographer who understood mountain light, how it differed from coast or prairie. She'd shot my friend's wedding. I'd loved how she captured fabric in motion. Project rate, she said, before I could explain my budget. I want in before you're famous. We were plotting the lookbook when my phone buzzed. Vivian. Darling, I've been thinking about your little fashion interest. Why don't you come work at Pearl Avenue unpaid internship? Of course you need to learn discipline before you can learn design. I'll even let you arrange the sale rack. I put her on speaker. Sasha's face went granite hard. That's generous, Mother. And Gregory has offered to introduce you to some retail connections if you're willing to be reasonable. Perhaps rebrand as Brooks Atelier. Keep it in the family. The old Elena would have argued. This Elena took notes. Family assistance, jowl control. Brooks' name, jowl leash. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. Marisol was already shooting my sketches against the exposed brick wall. Your mom sounds fun. She's about to be a case study in market disruption, Sasha said, threading her needle. 3 days later, Jared's Instagram story appeared. Some people treating fashion like dress-up. Cute for cosplay, I guess. Know your lane. I screenshot it, added it to my motivation folder. Sasha taught me everything my mother's boutique never would: how to press interfacing for invisible structure, to hide power in the seams where no one looked. We worked 18-hour days, my fingertips raw from hand stitching, her knowledge flowing like thread through fabric. Your mother sells clothes, Sasha said one midnight, adjusting my sleeve cap for the 4th time. We're building architecture. Never forget the difference. The breakthrough came during a test dye. The charcoal went wrong, bleeding into uneven streams. I nearly cried until Sasha held it to the light. Look, it's like marble, like geological veins. Like fault lines, I whispered. We kept the mistake, refined it, made it signature. Veer and Vine's DNA, beautiful damage, structured chaos, the place where breaking became art. Marisol shot our first lookbook on a parking garage roof at 5 a.m. Mountain wind creating movement, the concrete's angular shadows echoing our architectural seams. That image, a single model's shoulder blade against dawn light. Fabric rippling like disturbed water would become everything. This is it, Marisol said, reviewing the shots. This is your revenge. No, I corrected. Organizing patterns for production. This is my foundation. Revenge comes when they can't afford what I'm building. I want to help you succeed, darling. Vivian stood in my studio, her fingers trailing across my work table like she was inspecting dust. She'd arrived unannounced at 9 a.m. Pearl brooch positioned perfectly, her smile sharp as the scissors I'd hidden when I heard her heels on the stairs. Pearl Avenue has space, a small corner in the back, past the sale section. I could display maybe 5 pieces with my guidance on pricing, of course. How generous, I said, not looking up from my seam work. 30% commission, plus a monthly display fee, standard for emerging designers. She picked up one of my completed jackets, held it like contaminated evidence. Though we'd need to discuss quality control, this experimental stitching might confuse our clientele. Sasha, working at the far table, made a sound like a cat being strangled. The marble seaming is intentional, I said evenly. Of course it is, dear. But intention doesn't always mean marketable. She set the jacket down wrong, creasing the shoulder. Your father agrees. He's willing to make some calls, venture capital friends who invest in fashion startups. You'd just need to restructure as Brooks Atelier. Family legacy sells. And my creative control would be collaborative. We'd guide you toward commercial viability. Translation. We'd sand down every edge that makes you dangerous. I'll consider it. I lied. After she left, Sasha threw her thimble at the door. 30% plus display fees, highway robbery wearing pearls. That afternoon, Gregory sent an email through his assistant. Formal letterhead. The works? Investment opportunity discussion. Brooks Atelier potential. The terms were a master class in control, 51% stake for $50,000. Mandatory rebrand. Veto power on all designs, and something called Family Reputation Protection Clauses. I forwarded it to Theo Markham, the startup lawyer Sasha knew from her haute couture days. His response was immediate. This isn't investment. It's a hostile takeover in a gift box. Jared's social media campaign intensified. Never naming me directly, he was too smart for defamation, but the timing was surgical. Real fashion isn't arts and crafts. Some people should stick to their lane. Authenticity can't be faked with a sewing machine. Each post appeared right when I uploaded new work. My mother's digital fingerprints were all over the timing. But Marisol was building something stronger. The parking garage photos had caught attention from the right people buyers who recognized hunger, who understood that the best fashion came from necessity, not trust funds. She worked her contacts, pitched with the fervor of someone who'd been underestimated too. Archer and Alder wants to see samples, she announced one morning, bursting into the studio. The Dallas and Santa Fe stores, they're launching a capsule program for emerging regional designers. Sasha dropped her pressing iron. I felt my knees go liquid. Archer and Alder was legitimate luxury, not household name famous, but the kind of stores where CEOs' wives shopped without checking prices, where a single order could transform a studio operation into a real business. 40 sets, all sizes, Marisol continued. They want to see if you can maintain quality at scale. When? Sasha asked. 3 weeks. The room went silent. 40 sets in 3 weeks with 3 people was almost impossible. Almost. We'll need help, Sasha said. I know 2 seamstresses from my old atelier. They work fast, work clean, and despise establishment fashion. Can we afford them? Pay on delivery. They trust me. I did the math. If Archer and Alder bought the capsule, we'd clear enough to pay everyone and fund the next collection. If they didn't, I'd be in debt until I was 50. Do it, I said. We were 2 days into production when Vivian made her move. Marisol got the call from her contact at Archer and Alder. Someone had reached out suggesting Veer and Vine was a hobbyist operation run by a dilettante with no formal training. They used those exact words, I asked. Hobbyist operation. Dilettante. And my personal favorite, potential quality control issues stemming from inexperience. The antique aeroline hummed as I fed fabric through it, my hands steady despite the rage in my chest. What did A&A say? They want to see the samples even more now. Apparently, someone trying that hard to kill a deal means there's something worth killing. Gregory's next move was less subtle, an anonymous complaint to the city about commercial activity in a residential-zoned studio. Code enforcement showed up during a 16-hour production day. Theo Markham handled it with 2 phone calls and paperwork that retroactively designated us as an art studio, not commercial manufacturing. "Your father's not very creative for a money guy," Theo observed. "He's never had to be," I said, and kept sewing. The marble seaming that had been a mistake became our signature, each piece slightly different, like actual geological formations. Sasha's team worked with the precision of surgery, their hands remembering the haute couture standards that ready-to-wear had tried to make them forget. "This is resistance," one of them said, pressing a lapel with reverence. "Every stitch is resistance." The call from Archer and Alder came at 7:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was standing in what I'd started calling the war room, my studio now expanded with 2 additional sewing stations, fabric rolls stacked like fortifications. "Ms. Brooks, this is Catherine Ung from A&A Buying. We've reviewed your capsule. We'd like to place an initial order for all 40 sets, with a follow-up option for 60 more if you can maintain quality and meet our deadline." My hand went numb around the phone. Sasha grabbed my wrist, steadying me. "The deadline, 3 weeks for the additional 60, and we'll need your QC documentation. Our standards are non-negotiable." "You'll have everything." I hung up. Sasha was already calculating fabric orders. Marisol grabbed her camera to document this moment she'd been photographing our entire journey, calling it startup archaeology. The victory lasted exactly 4 hours. At 11:30 a.m., Catherine Ung called back, her voice careful. "Ms. Brooks, I've just received concerning information about Veer and Vine. Someone has suggested you may be inappropriately using the Brooks family legacy without authorization." My mother, "Of course. There seems to be some confusion about intellectual property rights and questions about your production capabilities." I put her on speaker. Theo Markham, who'd been reviewing contracts, immediately started taking notes. "Ms. I can provide full LLC documentation showing Veer and Vine is wholly independently owned. As for production capabilities, would a facility tour help? That would be helpful this afternoon. 3 p.m. The moment she hung up, Theo was drafting. "Cease and desist letters to both your parents. They're interfering with business contracts. Will that stop them? No. But it creates a paper trail." Sasha's team transformed the studio in 2 hours. Every surface cleaned, every thread clipped, workstations arranged like a ballet. We positioned the completed pieces on professional racks Marisol borrowed from a photo shoot. The marble seaming caught afternoon light like veins of silver. Catherine Ung arrived precisely at 3. She was younger than her voice suggested, with the kind of sharp attention that missed nothing. She ran her fingers along seams, checked interfacing, examined button attachment. "The marble effect. How do you maintain consistency?" Sasha stepped forward. "Each piece is individually dyed using a technique I developed in Parisian ateliers. The variation is controlled chaos, no 2 identical, but all within a specific range." Catherine pulled 3 jackets at random, compared them. "Sisters, not twins." "Exactly right." "Your mother called me personally," she said suddenly. "Vivian Brooks. She said you were trading on family reputation without permission." The studio went silent. "She also suggested your work was, how did she phrase it, ambitious beyond actual capability." And I kept my voice neutral. And that made me more interested. In my experience, established players only sabotage real threats. She photographed our QC charts with her phone. "The order stands. In fact, I'm approving the additional 60 now. Can you deliver?" "Yes." "Good. Oh, and Ms. Brooks, your father sent our CEO an email about potential litigation over the Brooks name. Our legal team found it. Amusing. Your company name shares no commonality with any registered Brooks family enterprises. After she left, we stood in the quiet studio, absorbing what had just happened. 100 pieces. Real money. Real validation. They're going to escalate, Sasha warned. She was right. Gregory's next move was an anonymous complaint to the textile suppliers, suggesting Veer and Vine was a credit risk. 3 vendors suddenly needed payment up front. Theo traced the Whisper campaign through business connections, all leading back to Gregory's golf club. I maxed out my credit cards for fabric. Sasha called in favors from decades in the trade. Marisol bartered photography work for thread and notions. We were bleeding money to make money, exactly as my parents had planned. Then came the real sabotage. 5 days before the A&A deadline, I arrived at 4 a.m. to find our charcoal silk wool blend replaced with inferior fabric same color, wrong quality. The security camera captured a figure in a Pearl Avenue delivery jacket. $20,000 of fabric, I said, my voice hollow. Gone. Sasha lifted the replacement fabric to the light. This is garbage. It won't hold the dye technique. So we're finished? No. She had that dangerous look, the one from her haute couture days when clients made impossible demands. We pivot. This cheap fabric, we're going to make it sing. We developed a new technique on the spot using the inferior fabric's tendency to pucker to create intentional texture, turning the flaw into design. The marble seaming became more pronounced, more organic. Midnight Fault was born from sabotage. Theo filed police reports and insurance claims, building our case. But I had bigger plans than legal remedies. Document everything, I told Marisol. Every pivot, every solution. When we win, I want receipts. We delivered to A&A 18 hours before deadline. Catherine Ung inspected every piece personally. The texture evolution from your sample's intentional? We call it Midnight Fault. It's exclusive to this run. Brilliant. The clients will love the limited edition angle. She signed the acceptance papers. Check will be cut within 10 days. And Ms. Brooks, we're recommending you for our spring showcase. National buyers attend. The check cleared. We paid everyone, had enough for the next collection, and I signed a lease on a proper studio space on Santa Fe Drive, 1,200 square feet of legitimate workspace. My mother texted that night. Heard about your little victory. Don't get comfortable. Real fashion is a marathon, not a sprint. I texted back a photo of the A&A purchase order. No words. Just numbers that spoke louder than pearls ever could. The rooftop garage in Lodo had been Marisol's idea. Street level is for stores. Sky level is for statements. We transformed the concrete expanse into something between gallery and rebellion. Fault line after dusk, 6 p.m. to midnight on a Friday that coincided perfectly with Denver Fashion Week's opening. Though we weren't officially part of it, we couldn't afford their participation fees anyway. Sasha stationed herself at a vintage singer, demonstrating live construction. Her weathered hands moved like meditation, building a jacket as guests watched. Fashion isn't magic, she'd tell anyone who stopped. It's engineering with fabric. Marisol had rigged projectors to throw coordinates across our piece's latitude and longitude lines that turned models into walking maps. The mountain grid system mapped onto clothing. The effect was hypnotic. Architectural shadows dancing with geographic precision. You're making us look amateur. I turned to find Vivian, her pearl brooch catching the projection light. She'd brought reinforcements 3 buyers from competing boutiques, all women from her circle who treated fashion like a country club membership. Mother, welcome to our pop-up. Pop-up. She said it like profanity. How trendy. But people were buying. Young lawyers, tired of dress codes written by men. Surgeons who understood structure. An architect who spent 20 minutes examining our shoulder construction with pure joy. Each sale was recorded, documented, shipped with our hand-embroidered labels visible. I posted a video that night, just my hands, adjusting a lapel under the projections. The caption, Real Luxury, asks, are you rich because of logos, or because of the lines? It went viral in 6 hours. Not worldwide viral, but Denver Boulder Aspen viral. The kind of viral that mattered in mountain money circles. Pearl Avenue's response was swift. Old Money Revival, a Saturday event featuring timeless elegance versus fleeting trends. Vivian hired a classical quartet, served actual champagne, not Prosecco, and had the Denver Post fashion writer, a woman she'd dressed for free for years, write a piece about the danger of fast fashion masquerading as artisan craft. The article ran with a photo of my mother beside vintage Chanel's, pearls gleaming. The headline, Established Excellence versus Experimental Excess. "She's scared," Sasha said, reading it over my shoulder. "She's cruel," I corrected. Same thing, different wardrobe. I filmed my response in the studio at 2 a.m. No script, just exhaustion and truth. Let's talk about craft versus establishment. I showed my hands cut, calloused, stained with dye. Then I showed our construction process, the 17 steps to create our signature shoulder, the hand finishing that took 3 hours per garment. Some people inherit boutiques, some people build them. Veer and Vine is built, stitch by hands that work, not hands that simply sign checks. But the real ammunition came from unexpected sources. Dr. Patricia Kim, orthopedic surgeon, posted a review. Veer and Vine's construction provides actual lumbar support, fashion that understands anatomy. Revolutionary. Marcus Webb, the architect who'd bought 3 pieces, created a technical drawing comparing our seaming to Frank Gehry's architectural breaks. This isn't clothing, it's wearable engineering. Sarah Frost, Olympic skiing coach, wore our pieces to a televised sports gala. Finally, clothes that move like athletes think controlled power, structured freedom. Each testimonial was ammunition. Marisol compiled them into a lookbook addendum titled Function Meets Fault Line. Orders came from unexpected places, a law firm requesting custom suiting for their female partners, a Denver hospital's surgical team wanting something that looked powerful under white coats, a tech startup asking if we could create their executive dress code. Cash flow went positive. We hired 2 more seamstresses, both from Sasha's old network women who'd been pushed out of traditional fashion for being difficult about quality standards. "Your parents are calling buyers," Theo warned during our weekly legal check, suggesting Veer and Vine is a liability risk, that you're unstable, that the company won't last the year. Let them. Every call they make is documented interference. The tipping point came through Instagram. A Boulder CEO named Amanda Chen posted herself in our full suit at a venture capital summit, raised $10 million wearing Veer and Vine. The men couldn't stop staring at the shoulders. Power dressing redefined. The post had 3,000 shares in 12 hours. My phone rang. Unknown number. Los Angeles area code. Elena Brooks. "This is Jessica Liu from Nordstrom Buying. We've been watching Veer and Vine. We'd like to discuss exclusive West Coast distribution." Behind me, Sasha dropped her scissors. Marisol started filming. "I'm listening. We're particularly interested in the Fault Line collection, but we'd need to ensure production scaling without quality loss. And there are some concerns about family competition in the fashion space." "You mean my mother?" Vivian Brooks has been quite vocal about her doubts. "Ms. Liu, my mother sells other people's designs. I create my own. Would you like references from Archer and Alder, or perhaps testimonials from the surgeons, architects, and athletes who've chosen Veer and Vine?" Silence. "Then send everything. We'll be in touch." I hung up and looked at my team, my real family, built from shared exhaustion and mutual respect. "They're going to go nuclear," Sasha predicted. "Good," I said, pulling up our newest design. "Let them burn themselves out. We have work to do." That night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. The message was a photo my parents at Pearl Avenue's Old Money Revival, surrounded by their circle, champagne raised. The caption, "Real fashion endures, experiments end." I texted back our latest sales figures. No words. Just numbers climbing like fault lines through stable ground. The security footage was grainy but clear enough. 3:47 a.m. Sunday morning, 5 days before our Archer and Alder mega delivery. A figure in a Pearl Avenue windbreaker entering through the loading dock we'd been stupid enough to hide a key for early morning fabric deliveries. They went straight to our fabric storage, knew exactly which rolls to swap. "That's Melissa," Sasha said, freezing the frame. "She works your mother's stockroom." $60,000 of premium silk wool blend replaced with synthetic garbage that would pill after one wear. The new A&A order 120 pieces for their fall preview would be worthless. Theo Markham reviewed the footage with prosecutorial precision. "This is commercial sabotage, felony level, given the amount. Can we prove my mother ordered it? Melissa won't flip, but we can file charges. Get a restraining order for all Pearl Avenue staff." I stared at the ruined fabric, calculating. We had 72 hours before cutting had to begin. No supplier could deliver our specific blend that fast. The synthetic would destroy our reputation if we used it. "We pivot," Sasha announced, lifting the synthetic to the light. "This cheap shit has one quality: it takes dye inconsistently. We're going to make that the point." "You want to use garbage fabric for our biggest order. I want to transform garbage into gold. Isn't that what we've been doing all along?" We spent 18 hours testing. The synthetic created natural variation when dyed not our controlled marble seaming, but something rawer. Geological violence instead of elegant fractures. "Midnight Fault," I said suddenly. "This isn't the classic line. This is Midnight Fault Limited Edition, exclusive to this run." Marisol grabbed her camera. "Document everything, the sabotage, the pivot, the innovation. This is the story." We worked in shifts around the clock. The synthetic required different techniques: lower heat, careful handling, modified construction. Each piece became a puzzle, forcing us to innovate with every seam. 3 days in, an envelope arrived via courier. Inside photos of my studio at different hours, my apartment building, even Sasha's house. No message, just surveillance. "They're trying to intimidate," Theo said, adding it to our legal file. "Let them watch," I said, not stopping my work. "They'll see what actual labor looks like." The real gift came Wednesday, an invitation on sterling silver cardstock, addressed to Veer and Vine. "The Aspen Heritage Gala cordially invites you to provide exclusive designs for our new Mountain Makers Showcase. Featured designers will create the official dress code for VIP guests and event hosts." Sasha read it 3 times. "This is massive." The Aspen Heritage Gala was Colorado's fashion summit. Not just rich people playing dress-up, but actual influence buyers from both coasts. Fashion editors, the kind of money that launched brands nationally. "There's more," Marisol said, reading the fine print. "Exclusive provider contract. If you accept, only Veer and Vine provides formal wear for the event. No other boutiques or designers permitted." I thought of that night at Silvercrest, my parents' mockery under crystal chandeliers, the same crowd, the same venue, but now they'd need me. "Accept it," I said. "Your parents will be there." Sasha warned, "I'm counting on it." We delivered the Midnight Fault collection to A&A 12 hours before deadline. Catherine Ung inspected each piece personally, her face unreadable. "The texture is different from samples. Limited edition evolution. The fabric reacts to our dye process uniquely. No 2 pieces identical, each one documented and numbered." She held a jacket to the window light. The inconsistent dye created depth, shadows that shifted with movement. "It's violent," she said finally. "Beautiful violence. Our clients will go insane for this." She signed acceptance. "I want exclusive rights to Midnight Fault. For a price? Name it." I did. She didn't flinch. That night, my phone exploded. Vivian, Gregory, numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all until one text stopped me cold. "You think you've won, I made you. Everything you know came from watching me. You're not a designer. You're a thief stealing from your mother's legacy. See you in Aspen. V." I screenshot it, sent it to Theo, then pulled up my design software. If she wanted to claim credit for my work, I'd make sure my work was something she could never claim. The Aspen collection would be my masterpiece, but more importantly, it would be priced at my masterpiece levels. Couture pricing for what my parents would desperately need to attend their own social summit. She's rattled, Sasha observed, reading over my shoulder. Good. Rattled people make mistakes. What's our fabric budget for Aspen? After the A&A payment substantial, double it. And call your best embroiderer. Every piece gets hand-stitched labels with individual serial numbers. V&V, Aspen capsule. Make them collector's items. Marisol grinned, understanding immediately. You're going to make your parents pay premium for clothes they mocked. No, I corrected, pulling up pricing structures from established luxury houses. I'm going to make them pay premium for clothes they can't afford to not wear. There's a difference. The Santa Fe studio hummed with purpose. We had 4 weeks to create 40 pieces that would define Veer and Vine nationally. 4 weeks to prepare for the confrontation I'd been building toward since that night at Silvercrest. My mother thought she'd made me. She was about to learn that children aren't created, they're forged. And the fire she'd lit with her cruelty had forged something she'd never be able to buy her way into authentic success. The Aspen Heritage Gala Committee arrived at our Santa Fe studio at 10 a.m. sharp. 3 women who collectively controlled Colorado's social calendar, each wearing last year's couture like armor. Ms. Brooks, the lead coordinator, Patricia Kensington, extended a manicured hand. We've been following Veer and Vine's rise. The Midnight Fault collection particularly impressed us. They toured the studio, examining construction, touching fabrics, photographing our process. Sasha demonstrated our signature shoulder technique. Marisol showed the lookbook evolution. I presented the Aspen capsule concept, 40 pieces, each numbered exclusive to the gala. Every VIP guest and event host will wear Veer and Vine. Patricia confirmed. Exclusively. No other designers or boutiques permitted to provide formal wear. And the pricing. I handed her the rate sheet. Structured pricing based on complexity tuxedos starting at $8,000, gowns at $12,000, with rush fees and exclusivity licensing additional. Patricia didn't flinch. The committee agrees. However, there's one complication. My stomach tightened. Vivian and Gregory Brooks have requested inclusion on the VIP list. As prominent donors, they're expecting complimentary attire from the featured designer. Sasha's needle stopped moving. Marisol lowered her camera. There are no complimentary pieces, I said evenly. Every garment is numbered, priced, and contracted, even for family. Especially for family. Patricia's smile was razor thin. We assumed as much. We'll inform them of the terms. After they left, Sasha whistled low. Your parents are about to lose their minds. They're about to lose more than that. We built the Aspen capsule like a symphony, each piece contributing to a crescendo. The men's tuxedos featured our fault line construction in midnight wool, shoulders that suggested tectonic plates shifting. The gowns draped like liquid architecture, every seam a statement about structure versus decoration. Each piece got a hand-embroidered label, V&V, Aspen capsule, No, 001 through 40, collector's items before they were even worn. The fittings began 2 weeks before the gala. CEOs' wives, federal judges, the lieutenant governor's daughter, each appointment meticulously documented. Our fitting room became a confession booth for the elite. Your mother asked me to report back on your operation, one client admitted during pinning, offered me a discount at Pearl Avenue, and I told her Pearl Avenue doesn't carry anything worth wearing anymore. The real confrontation came Thursday, 3 days before the gala, 4 p.m., scheduled like a dental extraction. Vivian entered first, her pearl brooch positioned like a shield. Gregory followed, black card already in hand as if money was his opening argument. Elena. My mother's voice could have frozen champagne. This is unnecessary theater. This is business. You need formal wear for the gala. I provide formal wear for the gala. We're your parents. Your clients. They examined the pieces I'd selected: an architectural gown in graphite silk for her, a precision-cut tuxedo for him. Both featured the signature fault line shoulders they'd mocked months ago. The construction is... Vivian touched the shoulder seam, her fingers recognizing quality despite herself. Different from Pearl Avenue's aesthetic. I suggested. Her eyes flashed. The pricing is ridiculous. Family doesn't charge family. Family doesn't sabotage family either. Yet, here we are? Gregory stepped forward. What do you want? An apology. Fine. We're sorry you took some light teasing so personally. I want payment, full rate, plus rush fees, plus exclusivity licensing. I laid out the contract. $28,000 for both pieces. Due before pickup. This is extortion, Vivian hissed. This is market rate for custom couture. You can always wear off the rack, but the gala committee specifically requires the featured designer's pieces for VIP guests. We funded your entire life, Gregory said, card waving. Private schools, college, that apartment you funded a daughter who'd reflect your success. I'm funding a business that exceeds it. The silence stretched like fabric under tension. Vivian tried once more. At least remove the labels. We shouldn't have to advertise your venture. I opened a small velvet box, revealing the pin I'd commissioned, a pearl and silver V&V that deliberately echoed her signature brooch. Every piece includes branded accessories. Non-negotiable. Gregory slapped his black card on the table. Fine, run it. I processed the payment on our new system, the one that had been upgraded after the A&A deal, after Nordstrom's interest, after we'd proven what they said we couldn't. The card declined. The beep echoed in the silent studio. Small, electronic, definitive. There must be a mistake. Gregory fumbled for another card. No mistake, I said quietly. The amount exceeds your available credit. Would you like to split the payment across multiple cards, or perhaps a payment plan? We offer financing for clients who need it. Vivian's face went from pale to crimson. You're enjoying this. I'm conducting business. Enjoying it is just a bonus. They gathered multiple cards, completed the transaction in 3 parts, the receipts printed with satisfying mechanical precision. Pickup is Saturday, 10 a.m., I said, handing them their documentation. Alterations are additional if needed. They left without another word, but I'd seen something in my mother's eyes as she'd touched that shoulder seam recognition, not of her daughter's talent, but of her own miscalculation. They'll try something at the gala, Sasha warned. Let them, I said, filing their contracts. They just paid $30,000 for the privilege. The Aspen Heritage Gala transformed Silvercrest Lodge into something between dream and declaration. Ice silver draping replaced the usual gold. My specific request to complement our graphite palette. The Veer and Vine logo projected onto a wall of manufactured snow, elegant, unmistakable, unavoidable. I stood in the same ballroom where I'd been humiliated 6 months ago, but everything had shifted. The architectural shoulders I'd designed moved through the crowd like walking sculptures. Every 5th person wore my fault lines, my vision, my revenge made tangible. Elena Brooks, the woman who cracked Colorado fashion. Patricia Kensington's introduction echoed through the sound system. The main screen lit up with Marisol's lookbook models on parking garage rooftops, fabric breaking like geological formations. The applause felt like vindication. I watched from the VIP platform as guests discovered their place cards included Veer and Vine authentication certificates, each garment numbered, documented, collectible. Phones came out, photos spreading across social media. Within minutes, we were trending. At 9:45 p.m., they arrived. Vivian entered first, the graphite gown moving like liquid architecture around her. The construction I'd perfected transformed her posture, shoulders back, spine straight, power in every step. Gregory followed in the precision-cut tuxedo, the fabric catching light exactly as I'd engineered. They looked magnificent. They looked expensive. They looked like walking advertisements for everything I'd built without them. They approached the check-in desk, where my assistant Emma managed the guest list. "Brooks, table 12, Gregory announced, expecting the usual deference. "I'll need to see your authentication tags," Emma said pleasantly. "Our what?" "The wrist tags provided when you collected your garments. They confirm payment and authentication." Vivian's hand went to her bare wrist. "We must have forgotten them. No tags, no entry to the VIP section. Security policy for authenticated pieces only." "This is ridiculous." Gregory's voice rose. "Everyone knows who we are." "I'm sure, but without proof of payment, I can't." "We paid," Vivian snapped, loud enough that nearby guests turned. "$28,000? Then you'll have your tags. Perhaps they're in your car." The assistant head of the gala approached, drawn by the commotion. She recognized my parents, saw their distress, and made a decision. "I'm sure we can make an exception." "Actually," I stepped forward, my charcoal suit the evolution of that first mocked design cutting through the crowd. "Exceptions compromise the authentication system. Every client followed the same process." My mother's eyes met mine. In them fury, recognition, and something else. Defeat, maybe, or respect. Hard to tell with Vivian Brooks. "Elena," she said quietly, "please, please." The word she'd never used when I'd begged her to stop mocking my work. I pulled out my phone, showed Emma the payment confirmation. "The Brooks transaction cleared yesterday. They're authenticated." Relief flooded my father's face. They moved toward the VIP section. "However," I continued, voice carrying, "there's still the matter of the exclusivity agreement." They froze. "All gala attendees wearing Veer and Vine agreed to exclusivity terms. No promotional mentions of other fashion houses tonight." I pointed to my mother's pearl brooch. "That's clearly Pearl Avenue's signature jewelry." "You can't be serious," Gregory said. "Remove it, or surrender your VIP access." The ballroom had gone quiet. Not silent music still played, but conversations stopped. Attention focused on our triangle of tension. Vivian's fingers went to the brooch, the family heirloom she wore like armor, the piece that had winked at me during every cruel comment. She unpinned it, handed it to a server. "Hold this until we leave." They walked to their table. No photographers stopped them. No one complimented their outfits. Everyone knew they were dressed by the daughter they'd tried to destroy. At 11 p.m., Patricia Kensington announced the evening's totals. Veer and Vine had generated $300,000 in direct sales, with orders pending from both coasts. She asked me to speak. I stood at the podium where my parents had once held court, where they'd built their reputation on old money and older cruelties. 6 months ago, in this room, I learned that style without substance is just expensive fabric. Tonight, Veer and Vine proves that substance can redefine style. Every seam you wear tells a story of construction over decoration, architecture over artifice. Fashion isn't about affording labels. It's about affording transformation. I found my parents in the crowd. They sat at their table, isolated in their expensive clothes, watching their daughter exceed their limitations. "Some people inherit their place in fashion," I continued. "Others build it, stitch by stitch, failure by failure, until failure becomes the foundation for something unbreakable. Thank you for wearing our revolution." The applause was thunderous. Orders flooded Emma's tablet. Buyers from New York, Los Angeles, Chicago all wanting Veer and Vine's next collection. As midnight approached, my parents stood to leave. They had to retrieve the pearl brooch from the server, had to walk through the crowd wearing my designs but without their signature armor. Gregory's black card appeared one last time as he tipped the valet. But it wasn't the same card he'd waved at Silvercrest 6 months ago. That one had been canceled, maxed out on a single purchase of clothes he'd mocked. Vivian paused at the exit, turned back. Our eyes met across the ballroom. She touched the shoulder seam of her gown, the architectural line she'd called costume, now couture she'd been forced to buy. She nodded, once, then disappeared into the Colorado night. I stood in my studio at 3 a.m., surrounded by order forms. Success finally spelled out in numbers they couldn't dispute. Sasha raised a glass of champagne, real champagne, not Prosecco. To revenge served at exactly the right temperature, she toasted. To construction over inheritance. I countered. The Veer and Vine label caught the light. Hand-embroidered, numbered, authentic. Everything my parents had said I couldn't be, stitched into reality they couldn't afford to ignore. The best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so undeniable they have to pay premium prices to participate in it. They'd raised their glasses and mocked my ambition. Now they wore my ambition, at $28,000 plus tax. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed this revenge tale, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Elena's shoes?